Well, Asif, I think we might as well get going now. It's
Okay.
6:04. Welcome to this 50-50 British Pakistan Foundation event. I'm going to hand over to Asif. Please, Asif, introduce.
Thank you, Francis, and thank you, ladies and gents who've agreed to come onto this webinar. I think this is a great opportunity for BPF to join up with 50-50 to show how important it is about women's positions in going forward within positions of authority and specifically of the parliament itself. So I'm going to give a little background on 50-50, a little background on BPF, and just a short intro on Farzana because I don't want to take away the thunder from our own talk. So I'll start off with 50-50. 50-50 is a representation. As a representation is important because it ensures that our lived experiences are highlighted and that our communities have a voice. And where else does that voice matter more than the parliament? Okay, so again, as I said, this is about women in politics, in parliament, in actually having a say in where the country is going. With regard to BPF, BPF is a cross-the-board organization for British Pakistani heritage people. By birth, most 98% of them are born in the UK, and effectively they are British. They are not Pakistani. Their heritage is Pakistani. So I think as the women's position states about women getting into parliament, I think the British Pakistanis need a platform like BPF to actually voice their requirements, have a say in the integration of our people within the greater diaspora, within the greater British community itself, because they're part of the British community. I'm going to give a short intro on Farzana. Farzana, I've had the opportunity to work with Farzana on a couple of occasions. Initially, I met her at the BPF when I was trying to get her to help us. She was extremely helpful in terms of advice, giving us advice where we're going. She is the CEO of one of the larger PR companies. She helps people like the British Pakistani Foundation, but she works with other communities, whether they're Russian or Japanese or whatever, to promote their own communities within the UK. She's also a trustee at the British Asian Trust and heads up the whole communication side of it. And that's more than enough. I'm going to let Farzana talk about herself and what she does. So Francis and Emerine and Farzana and all these ladies who helped us help BPF come here, thank you very much. Over to you, Francis.
Our pleasure. Thank you. And over to you now, Farzana.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. So my name is Farzana, and my mother came to the UK in the 70s from Rawalpindi. My father came from Kashmir, and I was brought up in London. And I, sort of growing up, I actually wanted to be a backing dancer of Michael Jackson, and I sort of, probably got a few slaps from my parents for that, and then I ended up becoming an accountant. My parents were quite happy with that, and I ran a tax company for 10 years. And I was, a little bit lost, didn't quite know what I wanted out of life. And the sort of exposure I had growing up was quite limited and narrow. And so I, in my own little kind of world, I sort of stumbled across politics, and I met this lovely lady called Anne Jenkin, who is, who's the founder of Women to Win. And I always was quite interested in politics, but I didn't know anybody, and I sort of felt as if, maybe it was just, it just felt like I had a lot of masculine energy around it, a lot of sort of debating and arguing, and people being nasty to each other, and lots of and low voices, and it just didn't seem like a world for me. But I was really interested, and so I met this incredible woman. And so what she did, and she was so kind, she just literally opened up her book, her black book, and said, right, what do you do? And I said, I'm in accounting. And she said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I'm really passionate about business. And so she really took me in, got me to meet lots of people. And then she said, right, I've got you a position as the vice chair for the business forum in the Conservative Party. I must have been about, I think, 27 at the time. And I don't know if anyone here also suffers, but, I have huge sort of imposter syndrome issues. And I've always had that sort of growing up. And I sort of said to her, I said, there's absolutely no way in hell I can take a position like that. I kind of was scouting around looking for the PA position. I can take notes, I make the tea. And she was like, absolutely not. You got to woman up and take this role. And I was absolutely terrified. And so I would go into meetings and you'd have kind of shadow ministers there, and you'd have editors of the nationals, and you'd have, sort of top CEOs of multinationals. And I was meant to be chairing these sort of meetings, and I felt completely out of my depth. And I remember Anne saying to me, just go there, and if you don't know what you're talking about, don't talk that much, but just look and nod. And and I was kind of like nodding a lot, going through these meetings, saying, what the hell are they talking about? And I kind of like slightly just try to focus upon my sort of body language and try to sort of emit this confidence that I was just crumbling. And anyways, I sort of went through, and I really pushed myself, and it was really scary actually for me back then. And then but then what I felt that when I went into the Conservative Party, I met such a huge range of people, different age groups, different socioeconomic backgrounds, different ethnic backgrounds, different sectors. And I literally stepped out of my little world of like suburban, British Asian, which, I love that world. But that was just my, that was the extent of my world. And I stepped out and I just met all these people through working, in the Conservative Party. And it was the most eye-opening, transformative experience of my life. And then I grew in confidence, and when I started out, at school, I remember I was doing, I had to sort of debate something in public. I was so shy that I kind of like, the voice didn't even come out of my mouth, and I sort of like, hunched over, and I was considered a real joke in my school because I was so bad at public speaking. And what's incredible about getting involved in politics is it really, it broadens your sort of network. And I don't mean that in a sort of like grabby way of, networking, but I mean it in the sense of absolutely sort of, shifting your perceptions about the world and the opportunities that's there for you, and just broadening your sort of, your take on life. But what it also did is it helped me grow as a person, because it forces you to engage with people out of your comfort zone, to really figure out what are your true values, and what do you want out of life, and what do you want to do for society. And I remember going through, like meeting all of these people in the Conservative Party who were very purpose driven, and it was incredibly inspiring. And although I never ended up actually applying to be a Conservative Party candidate, I was very much involved not only in the fundraising side, but also, as the vice chair for the business forum. And I realized actually I quite love working behind the scenes. And I remember at the time as well, I was the vice president for Club 24, which was a debriefing and a briefing and capacity building sort of initiative and fundraising initiative for 24 of the leading women in sort of marginal seats. And what we were doing with these women was actually, we'd bring in these sort of, body language experts, would bring in these coaches in order for them to sort of develop the way that they speak, and also develop the sort of confidence and how to articulate their sort of key messaging. And I was sort of like putting these sort of things together, and all these experts were coming in, and I thought, God, this is fascinating. And that's actually where I learned about public relations. And so I had no idea whatsoever what public relations was all about. And I thought, what is this world? My world of accounting was very binary, numbers, and all of a sudden there's this intangible world of perceptions and how perceptions shape reality. And I thought, God, what is this world? And it was getting involved in politics that actually showed me this world, broadened my life. I made incredible friends that that I consider like sisters today, and it actually showed me this whole new career path that I had no idea. So my message, really for everyone is, do get involved if you have an interest. If you have imposter syndrome, overcome it, because it is incredible. It's an incredible feeling to overcome, sort of like challenges, that you face in terms of confidence. And also, you just don't know where it's going to lead you, because it could be that you get involved in the party or whatever party you wish to get involved in, but it could be that, like me, you end up not actually, going for the candidate position, but actually finding your own way, where you end up learning about a different area, and you end up, sort of developing a whole career trajectory that you had no idea about. And because of my time in the Conservative Party, because of my time of getting involved in politics, I ended up setting up a PR firm that I had no idea what PR. I mean, my idea of PR was absolutely fabulous, like watching it on TV. And I thought that was what PR was all about, which unfortunately isn't. And so I learned all about it because of the Conservative Party. And now, I've worked with over, and purely because of my experience getting involved in politics, I've worked for, I think, 14 odd different governments in the last 10 years. I've worked for Russia and Ukraine, not at the same time. I worked for Azerbaijan, Bahrain, Spain, Canada.
Farzana, it sounds amazing. And, thank you for that. And I'm asking you to stand. Ask her to stand, right? I mean, it's great that you got involved in politics, and it's wonderful to hear that it's kind of taken you so much further. What I'd like to do now is to kind of move on so we can hear from the other panelists, and maybe we can come back to you a bit later. Is that okay?
Perfect.
I just want to tell you all a little bit about 50/50. The purpose of this evening's event is to inspire the women out there to consider signing up to stand with us, because we are here to help women take the plunge into politics. We work with all the political parties, we work with all kinds of women. And we're particularly reaching out to Pakistani women this evening. We have a diversity committee, and we run Connect and Reflect sessions on the last Monday of every month for women of different ethnicities, to support women, all kinds of women, but acknowledging that some women face higher hurdles, and different ethnic background can perhaps be a higher hurdle. And I have to acknowledge Asif now in the room. It's wonderful to have men on our side in this particular journey. Changing politics, building a better democracy is not going to just happen if it's women calling for it. We need men at our side in this journey, in the same way that men need women on their side if they're going to progress in politics and public life. So it's fantastic to have men with us. We've got now over 2,400 women that have signed up to stand with 50/50. In the last general election, over the 50 of the women standing were part of 50/50, and 9 of them won seats at Westminster. But we still need 105 more women to win seats if we're going to have a 50/50 gender balanced parliament, which is what we're aspiring to. So we're reaching out to women this evening. We're reaching out to women every day and saying, take the plunge into politics, sign up to stand with 50/50. We do 4 things when you sign up to stand with us. The first thing we do is that we send you a personal political profile, which lists all these sort of activities that you might want to get involved in. It lists all the organizations that are here to help you. The second thing we do is we allocate you a 50/50 buddy, a bit like if you're going scuba diving, you have a buddy along the way. Well, it's the same here. If you're taking the plunge into politics, you'll have a personal buddy that you can contact and will help you along the way. The third thing that we do is we invite you to weekly bite-sized meetings. And Maureen is one of our bite-sized facilitators, and she's going to be talking later, where you can meet women who've got on-hand experience. They've stood for election. They know how their parties work. These are party-specific meetings. Rashida attends them. She'll tell you all about them. And then the last but not least, we offer bespoke support to women from different groups. women with disabilities, women from different ethnicities, women from the LGBT community. So all I'm saying is I'm urging you, sign up to Stand with 50/50 if you're the woman who's thinking about getting involved. And if you're a man sitting on this in this meeting with us, thank you for being here. And if you know a woman who would make a great MP, ask her to stand, tell her about 50/50, encourage her to sign up to Stand. She needs to be asked 3 times. Women need to be asked at least 3 times if they're going to consider entering politics. So enough from me, but I really hope that this evening might be the start of a really exciting journey for some of the people in this room. So now it's time really for me to hand over and introduce you to Amana Ahmad, who's the Vice President of the Lib Dems. And I'm going to invite her to introduce herself and tell us about why she loves politics and why she thinks there should be more women involved. Amana, over to you.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Frances, and so wonderful to hear from Fazana and from Asif as well today. So my name is Amna Ahmed, and I am the Liberal Democrats Vice President. I've recently been elected to that position by members, and my work, the way I got there, it's mostly an internal piece of work, but part of my role is an understanding from the Liberal Democrats as a party that frankly they need to do better when it comes to working with ethnic minority communities, candidates, and engaging better with voters. So I'm all about making the case for diversity mainstream. I don't think it's a kind of side issue. It's not parallel. It is absolutely critical to the way that political parties, in my opinion, engage better with voters. And voters, the face of Britain is changing. I myself, I think, Asif, you mentioned the 98%. I think I must be in that, maybe I am that 2%. I was born in Lahore and I came to the UK at a super young age. Hello, any other Lahoris here? But I came to the UK at a really young age. Don't remember it. I think I might have been 1 or something. And my parents, my grandfather on my father's side had come to the UK in the 1960s in the kind of big sort of immigration waves, again, from Karachi and from Lahore. So, but both my parents are Pakistani. They got married there, and then I was born and we came to the UK. I grew up in London, and I've had I'm sort of I joined the Liberal Democrats because of their stand against the Iraq war. So that was the kind of galvanizing moment for me. And I think for a lot of women and men out there who I know who join political parties, there's usually a connection. And I think it's sometimes the lack of that kind of perhaps a familial connection or otherwise that means that people aren't always from our communities considering politics. Obviously, there are many people in this room who have considered politics and gotten engaged with it, which is incredible. But I do find that in the kind of wider communities, it's not always something that's thought about. But, you know, we've talked a little bit about the change of Britain, the changing face of voters, but also just the kind of multicultural nature. So I totally identify with this idea of, I mean, I was born in Pakistan and I have close links, but at the same time, I am British and I have Pakistani heritage. So there's that sort of sense of identity and what that means. And I bring a lot of that and that idea of sort of making my country better, not just for people like me, but for everybody, but with a real understanding of the impact of kind of racial inequality and what it does within South Asian communities, but also within other communities as well. And what that can mean for a lack of political engagement. That's one of the areas I'm very passionate about.
Can I just ask, what is it that the Lib Dems, what support do the Lib Dems offer women who want to progress in politics?
Absolutely. So there are 2 things, actually. So there's another group that I know, the 50/50 group I've worked with before, called the Campaign for Gender Balance, and they have been working in the party, in the Lib Dems, for about 15 years. And that's kind of got a longer standing, actually, than the work that I'm pioneering in working with ethnic minority communities. So I guess on a personal level, I sit at that intersection, but also I'm very interested in working across the community. So there is quite a lot like what you said, Francis, so the sort of mentoring support, and my work is around engaging and advocating for candidates, ensuring that they get really great seats and increasing their network and visibility within the party, but also in better engagement across the board. I just very quickly want to give you an snapshot of my political journey, because this vice presidency has not come out of nowhere. I first stood for council in 2013, where I lived. There was a council by-election. I then ended up helping other councillors in the local area, campaigning, advocating, canvassing. I really enjoy standing on the doorsteps. It's all very stereotypical Lib Dems for the other parties in the room, you know, standing at the door. But I think the other thing is I then stood for my first parliamentary seat in 2015 in Streatham in London. It was a no hope seat for me, but it was an incredible experience to be standing on a platform and combating, as Fazana said, some of that imposter syndrome as well, and having that opportunity to sit at that table. Then I went on from there and campaigned against Brexit. That was one of my sort of key campaigns. I stood for the London Assembly as well. So for those who haven't thought about what it might mean to run for a parliamentary seat, I think it's important to also look around you and think about some of the other opportunities that there might be. If that is not where you want to be immediately, it's a good opportunity to build up. I then stood in a target seat in 2017 in Sutton and Cheam, which is sort of southwest London, Surrey. And yeah, that was incredible, but I didn't win, sadly. And I have to admit that I did, but it was an amazing experience. It was sort of national news level experience. And because it was a snap election, everything went into kind of hyperdrive, right? So it was an amazing experience. And I actually think by-elections are really great ways, if you're ever interested in running for anything, it's a great way, if you are the kind of person like me who thrives in a kind of just go for it atmosphere. And if you think about it a bit too hard, maybe it's not a great idea, which can be my attitude sometimes. So I think by-elections are really good. So 2017, I then won a scholarship to Harvard. So I then went to the Kennedy School to study for a master's in public administration. So I got back to the UK in 2020, and I've been working up to the vice presidency and was elected to that and declared earlier this year. So it's been quite a long political journey with sort of different elements and focus. So the Liberal Democrats do offer support. That support is enhanced by the introduction of my post and the election of my post as well. And I do think that if you are thinking about what it means to be a candidate, it's vital to talk to people who've done it before. So there are so many women, wonderful women on this call who I think is vital to speak to, but also, I guess, from my perspective, my Liberal Democrat plea is to think carefully about the sorts of policies that you believe in and to think about where it is that you want to see your political future.
Amana, so thank you so much. And, you know, many congratulations. And I do hope that you've signed up to stand with 50/50 because we want to monitor your progress. Next time you need a winnable seat. But, you know, thank you. You know, fantastic to hear, really inspirational. So the next person we're hearing from is Amreen Reza, who is one of the 50/50 team. It's a privilege to have you with us, Amreen, and thank you so much for helping set up this wonderful event. So over to you, Amreen. Tell us what you love about politics and you know, how 50/50 has helped you along the way and that kind of thing.
Thank you. So I'd like to start by thanking Asif, who is boldly going into women's space. Thank you for your leadership and your encouragement. This event wouldn't have been possible without it, without your encouragement. And a huge thank you to our dynamic founder, Francis Scott, whose vision and energy 50/50 would not have existed and would not have had the success it has today. And of course, my dear friend Fazana, who's a PR guru. So we can't leave her out here. So I'm Emmarine. I'm a mother of 2 boys, and so you can imagine the challenges we have there. No one teaches you how to be a parent. I'm qualified as an architect, qualified from New York. I set up my own consulting firm and worked at MIT and Boston and New York and developed what I call low-income housing and social mobility tools. I then went on, moved to London. So no, I was not born here. I don't have any school connections, but yes, I have stood for a parliamentary seat. So I think that's very important for those who are not familiar with the system and may feel they have come into this country and don't know how the system works. There's always opportunity. So I set up a charity, and the reason I say this is because you need to build your CV, and these are some of the things that have helped candidates, whether you're a councillor position or not, or a parliamentary. I'm a trustee of a Jewish Muslim women's network to reduce stereotyping, prejudice, and hate crimes. I sit on the board of a housing association. Now, my work is listening at grassroots concerns, addressing local issues, and delivering on social mobility projects. For me, what an MP does is an extension of my work to listen and address community concerns and design policy for the betterment of all. That's why I got involved in Parliament or in politics. I'll give you a little bit about myself. At present, I'm a director and I believe vice chair of Conservative Friends of Pakistan, a champion for conservative policy forums. So policy is very important because that's where you're making the difference. The diversity officer for Conservative Women's Organization, and a candidate for, and was a candidate, I think I was maybe a colleague for Greater London Assembly in 2021. Now, as a Conservative parliamentary candidate for Hodge Hill, Birmingham, when I got a call and someone said, "You're a parliamentary candidate for Hodge Hill." I thought this was a crank call. Literally, that's exactly what I thought. And I turned around to my husband and said, "Someone's joking." He called me back again and said, "Please don't put down the phone." Anyway, so I was the parliamentary candidate. What I realized there was that there was a gender imbalance with virtually no British Pakistani signing or standing in public office at any level. I am absolutely passionate about increasing diversity in the Conservative Party. We've made huge progress. We look at, if you look at our present cabinet with regards to diverse representation, we can see that we need to increase representation throughout every layer of our party. So when I say representation, I mean in the broadest term, not just based on ethnicity or gender. We need it to be about disability, LGBT as well, and not just choosing few professions, choice professions, but truly diversely representative of the people that we will be representing. Now, the Conservative Party has the capability and the desire to do just that. We've had 2 female prime ministers, diverse cabinet ministers, MPs, councillors, parish councils, and local association members. I'm mentioning all of these is because you can then apply to these positions if you get involved in the party. We have a very strong candidates team. It is led by a woman, a large and diverse Conservative women's organization, and a Women to Win, which is what Farzana was mentioning. Women to Win supports women along their way to the green benches. So once you've gone through the selection process, you are then guided by a team at Women to Win. So today we have the opportunity to balance gender representation in Parliament. And I ask all of you to stand to ensure we get that 50% of women in Parliament. I do believe the perfect segue into political life is through 50-50 Parliament, where you can safely understand which party you want to represent, and in your own time, with the buddy system, pick up skills and experience. Which is why I was propelled to join 50-50 as a Conservative bite-side facilitator to encourage Conservative women from diverse communities and backgrounds to stand for public office. Now, I want to mention 2 jewels of 50-50 Parliament, which I have enjoyed working in. The first one is 50-50 Bite Size. It's a virtual space, a safe virtual space for party members of all parties. You come together as a party. so groups of women coming together to ask questions, to discuss selection process, understand how to build your CV, get the correct soundbite for your speech, and be referred for training. So this is where you are speaking to people. Some of them have already gone through processes, they can guide you. Some of them are going through a process and you are sort of helping them about, and everybody is equal on that platform. Everybody has a voice and they have it's more about a discussion. The second space that I think is amazing is the cross-parliamentary connect and reflect session, which is invaluable because it's a safe space for our diverse women to discuss issues, concerns, things that they had heard during their political journey. And again, this is a very safe space. It is for diverse women. So if they're having any issues in selection, they can at least voice it. And we can then guide them if there's one of us who knows how the process works. So then you're not stuck there isn't a bottleneck there, right? So I'll end by requesting the women who are present here from all walks of life, hopefully, to sign up to ask her to stand. I think Frances has plugged this quite a bit, but to represent the diverse community that make up our great country, the United Kingdom. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Amreen. Yes, what you need to do is go to our website and click sign up to stand, and then we're here to help you. And just to explain, as Amreen was saying, we have bite-sized meetings. On Tuesday, there's a bite-sized meeting for the Labour women. On Wednesday, there's a bite-sized meeting for Lib Dem women. On Thursday, there are bite-sized meetings for Conservative women. And then once a month, we run the Connect and Reflect sessions for women of diverse ethnicities, which is a cross-party support group. And now I want to hand over to Rashida Din, who has been inspired. And I'm going to let you tell your own story, Rashida, because I'm so proud of it.
Thank you, Frances. Thank you for inviting me to such a great event. And I'm loving hearing all the speakers. Okay, who am I? So just to introduce myself, I'm a teacher and I always knew that I would go into public service. So I've taught for something like 27 years. I'm head of science. I'm an assistant head teacher. I'm that 1% nationally of BME leaders. So I've cracked some of that glass ceiling, but I think there's still a way to go. And I think it was about 2 years ago, there was that perfect storm. We had the COVID lockdown, we had a climate crisis, and it really galvanized me. And I kind of focused on all of those social inequalities that were occurring, the lack of opportunities, etc. And I thought, actually, I think I need to do a little bit more here. I need to step up. And that's what it's about. It's taking on, as a woman, that leadership role and knowing that you have got a voice, and being from a diverse community, that's a really important voice to have because it's that lived experience. And I wanted my voice and my experience, you know, to be amplified around those corridors of power and around those tables where policies are made. And that's what it comes down to, doesn't it, ladies? What was really interesting was that it was just one tweet that I saw on Twitter, because I thought, right, how can I get involved a little bit more? And it was a 50-50 Parliament tweet inviting women to sign up to stand. And that's exactly what I did. This is almost, 2 years ago, and it's been an amazing experience. What it has done is, for example, doing those bite-sized sessions, it gives you a space to explore your own political identity. I went to lots of events from different parties. I went to the Conservative Party events. I've been to the Green Party events because I really was interested to see what other parties had to say. And then, you know, I found a home. But one thing is clear is that, you know, just because you join a party doesn't mean that you need to stay in that party. It's the values. And that's that journey that you go through. And I've had an amazing experience. So, for example, through my union work, with that confidence and that mindset change, the fact that, you know, I need to step up in that national sort of arena. I'm now the president for my local association at the NES UWT. I'm on the National Leadership Advisory Group. I'm the co-chair for the Equalities Committee. And that may have been a journey that would have gone on, but actually I was inspired and I was empowered by what I was hearing about all these MPs and councillors and these strong women that had broken down barriers and actually had crack that glass ceiling. I thought, I want to be there. I want to be one of those women. And I was very inspired by that. Is there a journey still to go? Absolutely, there is still a journey. Fortunately, I'm one of the Westminster parliamentary candidates for the next general election. I hope to be a councillor. In my authority, it's 2023, so I've still got a bit of time to wait. And what I would like to do is to go for president of my union. There hasn't been a Pakistani woman in that role. In fact, there hasn't been a president of a local association that's been a Pakistani woman. So I have broken some barriers, but I want that top job. That's got my name written on it. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but hey, my journey's just beginning. The other thing I would like to say about the Labour Party, and I'm Labour and Co-op, okay, so I have lots of, I value cooperation. I like the fact that, you know, members help build policies and that voice is there. That's why I'm Co-op Labour. And I've been very fortunate to have a place in the Jo Cox leadership course, just one of 5 women in the Eastern region. And I was very inspired by Jo Cox's work that she did. And what she said, it's for the many, but not the few, and that resonates. And one last thing I'd like to say is that, which is going off topic, but it isn't quite. My son and his wife had their scan today because my daughter-in-law is expecting and it's going to be a girl. And this is why I do this. I do this for the next generation, because what comes for the girls to be in the future, I want to empower them and I want them to be leaders, and that's how society is going to change. So thank you, Frances, and thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Rashida. I couldn't agree with you more. I've got 3 daughters. We do this for our daughters, but we also do it for our sons. But in the 100 years or so since women have had the right to vote and stand, there have been well over 5,000 MPs elected, but only 558 have been women. So, you know, there's still a way to go, and we still need over 100 more elected in order to get gender balance. So we need to be empowering each other and helping women along the way. So that's why we do this work. So now I really would like to introduce Farah Fazana, who is chair of the SNP BAME network, and it's an honor to have you with us, Farah. Let me hand over to you to introduce yourself. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much to everybody. It's been an absolute pleasure, and it's been great to hear from Farzana and Asif and fellow panel speakers as well. So yeah, I'm a bit in awe of everybody here. First of all, I'd like to say I feel like I've still got quite a lot to do. So I became more active in politics with the big campaign that changed Scottish politics, which was the referendum in 2014 of Scottish independence, and that really got me engaged because it was something that I had never even thought about before, because I came from a world where politics just was not my thing at all. So I came into the referendum undecided, not sure, should we stay part of the UK, should we be independent? You know, so I had that journey myself, and it was very, very interesting because, you know, when you go through university and you always learn to do research and evidence-based, etc. So I actually like got down to the books and started learning and did my own research, etc. And then it was quite good having sort of like different kind of platforms to be able to discuss. So in the end, I ended up voting yes. So I'm one of the 49 that you know, I was obviously quite gutted that we didn't get independence, but here's to the campaign for it. But what actually really kind of sparked at that point was the fact that when I was talking, people were listening and we were having those engaging conversations. And I think that is absolutely what was amazing that happened in Scotland, that people became so much more politically aware that it never became like a taboo subject. It was a conversation that was happening in everybody's homes, and nobody really quite realised how much politics and policy actually affect our everyday lives. So I think that realisation was absolutely huge. And from there, I actually swiveled because I wanted to become more active in politics, which was very unheard of in our family. Now, I come from a lower class background. I grew up with a single parent family household. My mother was in an abusive marriage, you know, so she had to raise four of us by herself. So we were always like, you know, kind of like in the poverty line, but mum never made us feel like that. Then obviously growing up, we had our own, you know, adverse childhood experiences. So, you know, the continuity was there. And unfortunately, I got married when I was 18. Unfortunately, that led to another abusive marriage myself. So I'm 5 years, woohoo, free, 5 years freedom. To that. So I think within that time, I've learned quite a lot. And I think the experiences that I have had through life, living in poverty and living as obviously a single parent myself now with 2 young children, I think having that relatability to the electorate, to the community is so vital, because when people look at politicians, they see someone that is an arm's length away. They don't see someone that looks like them. So that was a very, very key point for me when I started to become more and more active within the community. So I actually started with community activism in 2014, where me and my sister started our own grassroots organisation called Al Masar. And it was to bridge that gap of having the voice of ethnic minority families within the local authority and the decisions that were being made with consultations, because we were forever left out, ignored, marginalised, all those lovely key buzzwords that we always keep panning about. There you go, my sister's put our website in the chat there. So from there, I got really involved in politics because I really was fascinated by the tangible aspect of influencing policy, and that is what I'm really, really driven by. I stood in 2017 in the local government election, so that was about 5 years ago, and that experience in itself was like life-changing. And it wasn't because I was just going through what you would do when you're running in a campaign. I stood in a 3-member ward with another colleague, but we stood where there was mostly a Labour Tory vote. So we had the unionists, basically, the unionist vote. Then here you've got a little Pakistani girl wearing a hijab, going into these villages asking for people to vote for them. So there was an element of fear, and I think a lot of it was in my head, because you know, this was off the back of Brexit. You know, the whole term, the way that the media had portrayed immigrants and migrants and generations of migrants, the fact that we're all foreigners, we're here to take jobs. And I actually had you know, these kind of discussions on the doorstep. You know, why do you want to stand for council? You know, what is your place in our community? And I'm like, hey, listen, I'm born and brought up here. I have a right to say what goes on in my community, and I benefited a lot from my neighbours, white neighbours and Pakistani neighbours, Muslim neighbours, and I want a chance to give back to my community. And when I talk about my community, I don't necessarily just mean the Muslim community or the Pakistani community. I mean my neighbourhood. You know, the ones who'd always be looking out for us whenever the teenagers came round to play Trapdoor Run, or whenever we got egged and a neighbour came out and told those boys off, sort of thing. You know, this is what I call my community. So that was a really huge. And then obviously on the side of that, I had the whole drama with my ex-husband and police involved and things like that. So like I mentioned, I am a survivor of domestic abuse, and it all just happened all at one time. So that's why that specific point has been a life-changing event, because not only was I dealing with my marital breakup, the harassment, the stalking, the abuse that was going on, but also had a campaign to run. And it was just, funnily enough, it was not soul destroying. I see myself as that is a point of where I grew a lot, and if I didn't have my party colleagues with me, we're a family. I call my branch a family, because if I didn't have them with me, giving me that emotional support, being out there campaigning with me, having that faith in that, listen, you're fine, you're safe, And I think that was the main thing, having those people around me, my convener, our organizer, colleagues, making me feel safe while I was doing something that I was so passionate about. That really gave me that sense of loyalty to my branch, and I wanted to give that back. So fast forward to the last couple of years, I've became chair. We recently became an affiliate group of the SNP. So as we know, the SNP is the party in government in Scotland. And going back to what I said about having a tangible influence on policy, as chair, it has been absolutely amazing. And this is what I love about politics, is the fact about having that ability to influence policy. For example, my biggest news for this month is that the NEC, so I sit on the NEC as well for the SNP, and is in a job sharing role with a colleague. And we formally and officially passed the APPG definition of Islamophobia, which is amazing in itself because it's about that recognition. And the way that I had gone about it was using a human rights approach, was listening to having that engaging conversation with our members, because I believe in a grassroots movement. That's something that I bring within the leadership of when I am with the network, the BAME network. It is about making sure that the voices of the members are being heard. And then I see it as my role as a leader to make sure that those voices are being heard. So we have made a lot of progress, and I've only been here for 2 years. We influenced the Holyrood manifesto last year, and I'm seeking to influence the local government manifesto this year. Unfortunately, I'm not standing for local government elections this year. I'm really sorry. But due to personal reasons and health, etc., I'm unable to do so.
Sarah, your story is inspirational, and people are saying in the chat, it's so wonderful to hear from you and what you've achieved. And as you say, being a single parent, having suffered domestic abuse, it means this is about opening the doors. It's called the House of Commons. Politics, democracy is meant to be for everybody. We need to be drawing from a much greater range, and the pyramid needs to be wide at the bottom if we're going to have diversity at the top. And so it's just so moving to hear your story. I just want to move on now to some of the questions that we have in the audience, because there are some really great questions here. And actually, to your point, the first question was from Nazir about safety. And of course, this is a very, very relevant question. And how is it, I would like to ask about safety for women in politics. How safe do you feel working in public life? And furthermore, have any of you felt typecast as an Asian woman by the wider electorate within your within your ethnic community? I think that you kind of addressed some of this. I also just want to highlight, because some of you have said that door knocking, I think Farzana, you said at the very beginning how empowering and how wonderful it actually is when you knock on doors. And most of the general public are polite and wanting to communicate and share opinions in a respectful manner. I guess, Farzana, I'm going to come right back to you because you opened. Have you had to deal with any kind of safety issues, or have you had any personal abuse? I mean, maybe in a sentence or two, because I'd like others on the panel to answer. What's your answer to this safety issue?
I think there's definitely an issue in terms of the intersectionality of race and gender when it comes to online abuse, and particularly for women of colour in politics. And there has actually been a number of reports that have come out. I think there was one where 20 BAME women, I don't know if you shouldn't use that word anymore, I guess, receive about 41% of the abusive tweets sent to female MPs in the lead up to the 2017 election. And it's horrific when I see what, the sort of language that is used towards people like Diane Abbott. I think it's absolutely horrific. So I think the reality is there is online abuse. It's, you know, people will say something different to you face to face at the door, but I think the real issue is really the online abuse. And there is a heightened sort of, you know, abuse towards women and women of color. And, you know, there is a number of sort of movement towards countering it. And I have actually received, I mean, I've been called the P word on Twitter, probably as maybe 4 months ago was the last time. Every time I get involved in something remotely political, then the abuse does come, unfortunately.
My husband used to say Twitter's for twits, and actually, I mean, I've for 50-50, Twitter's been enormously beneficial. You know, we've been able to reach out to politicians, you know, where in the very early days, it was wonderful with a name like 50-50 Parliament, MPs would actually start communicating with you. But so, I mean, what is the mechanism? How do you overcome this? I mean, some people just say block the trolls. I mean, don't engage, ignore them. But as you rightly say, sadly, I mean, has anyone else on the panel got an approach to how to deal with this?
I think what you have to do, the reason why you would ignore and block them is that you want to get rid of that oxygen, because all you're doing is creating monsters, aren't you? And once you take away that attention, you know, then they've got nowhere else to go. And also the other thing that you need to do is to develop your own resilience, your own emotional capability to deal with this, because you have to be quite thick-skinned if you're going to go into public service, I think.
Oh, thank you for that. Yes, you do sometimes have to have the skin of a rhinoceros, but it's worth it. You know, you put on your armor, and because there are other people who can be really thankful. Has anyone experienced the thanks and the appreciation?
Yes. When I was standing as a parliamentary candidate in Birmingham Hodge Hill, I had women coming to me from all parties saying, you know, you are brilliant. Can we please have you meet our daughters? And that is when I said, okay, I need to do something for the British Pakistani women. And I would meet with them, and this was during Ramadan, so iftari. So I would organize iftaris for 20 women and their daughters, and we would talk about what they need to do. And yes, I think for them, it was very, very helpful to see a woman. The first question they did ask me was, have you been abused while you were going? When I'm door knocking, I was going into areas where it was a little rough. And there is a principle, and I think a number of us know that, is that you go with 2 or 3 people together. And you always have your on your phone, you have that ability to tell your buddy where you are. It's a GPS type thing. I can't remember what it is, but it is there. And we always use it, so that if someone is, for instance, there was a time where one of the MPs, one of our MPs, my MP, not my MP, but well, yeah, a Muslim MP woman, she went into a space, great supporter of hers, but he was just in this cranky mood. So we had to go in quickly and track her out.
Look, that's very practical advice. Definitely always go in a group. Definitely have telephone contacts. There's a great organization called Glitch, who run fabulous courses about online safety. And there's Elect Her, which also run great training courses for women who want to get involved in politics. And 50-50 can signpost you to all these organizations. We work collaboratively to help and empower women. Farah, have you anything that you'd like to add to that question, or anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, so this was in the days of the BNP. One of the things back in 2017 when I stood, that was around about the time there was a leaked list of local BNP members. So someone thankfully brought that along, and so I made sure that those were doors that none of like our campaign team went to. So it is about taking precautions, but you know, maybe finding alternative ways. About taking precautions. For example, if you know that there is someone, for example, like over in our end when we're going out canvassing, you know, you've got a unionist when they've got the Union Jack out in their garden, and then you can, you know, sort of preempt the kind of abuse that you would get. Just forget about, you know, being Muslim, but obviously because you're part of the Scottish National Party. So
yeah.
it's about being aware of what the situation is of when you're going in and preempt it.
Yeah, I could not agree. Again, Farah, one of the things I was told with politics is don't bother trying to convert people who are clearly in complete disagreement with you, you know, and, you know, respectfully, they have a right to their opinion, but you have a right to yours. And it's best just to part company as friends, and then move on to someone who's still slightly ambiguous about how they're feeling about things. And then maybe you can persuade them. So, you know, and that's the same with 50-50. There are people who just don't agree with this aspiration. And there's no point in trying to convert everybody. You just work with the people who agree. So, you know, go for the easy wins, really, and try not to get into an antagonistic, abusive circumstance. Maureen, did you want to add something?
Yes, I just wanted to respond a bit to, I think it's Nazia Shahid's comment. I feel wary of Asian Muslim men too, who are aggressive. Just from my experience, and I canvass day in and out. It's just something that's in my DNA. And while I was a parliamentary candidate, there was never a single Asian, Indian, Pakistani, Bangladeshi man who was disrespectful of me. They always spoke to me very properly, very politely, and they would say, we don't support you, and they would ask me to leave. This has happened in London, this has happened in Birmingham, this has happened in Yorkshire. Yorkshire can be a tough place. And so I was, you know, Farzana talked about the women who were abused in the 2017 election. I know most of them were friends of mine, and I was very fortunate. I didn't have that experience. And so they will be aware of who you are, but I think I have never had an experience of Asian men ever coming at me or being aggressive or saying, oh, you Tory, what have you not, go away. I've not had that experience. So
well, look, Amreen, that's so good to hear. And let's face it, you know, Asif has been supporting us with this event and others. And we have many men involved with 50-50. Men are welcome to be part of our organization. And as I said at the very beginning, we need men on our side if we're going to build a better democracy. We need everybody on our side if we're going to build a more inclusive democracy. It's about respect and listening to each other. I'm mindful, unfortunately, of the time. It's 7 o'clock now, so it's time to round up this wonderful event. And my phone is going, which is super embarrassing. I'm going to hand over to Asif. I really just want to say that the comments in the chat say it all. A brilliant, inspiring event. Great to hear so many inspirational Pakistani women. Please, I hope that you, if you can't stand, just join 50-50. Get on our mailing list, hear about what we do. And Asif, can I hand over to you? I hope we're going to be organizing at least 2 more events with BPF.
Thank you, Francis. So thanks, Francis, Emerine, Farzana, Rashida, Farah. Thanks to all the ladies for attending. Look, I think this is really inspirational. Even, I mean, generally I would have put it on mute and put my picture off, but I was really, you know, I am a believer that the only thing that matters in a democracy is the vote. Okay, you need to be able to vote for people that you want in there. And I think if you women, or some of you women, don't get out there and start talking what you think, it's not going to work, okay? And that goes for my own community. As a Pakistani, whether you're a woman or you're a man, it doesn't matter. You need to say your piece, because if you don't look after yourself, nobody else is going to look after you, okay? And so that's my last piece, but I hope that I'll be back with 50-50, because this is a great opportunity for us to drive BPF's agenda itself, which is for a platform for British Pakistanis so that they can get there. And, you know, if you have a few 100,000 votes behind you, let me tell you, you can make a big difference. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Asif. Thanks everyone for attending this evening. Thank you for your comments. Feel free to email us, contact@5050parliament.co.uk if you've got any feedback you want to give. We want to hear from you. We want to support you, and sign up to stand.
Francis, one question to you.
Yeah.
All these questions that these people have put up on the chat, are we going to get a chance to someone going to respond to
Yeah,
them?
Dear Beth is writing a blog, so we can go through these questions and try and answer some of them in the blog, and we'll share that with everyone
That would be
that's come
really
this
nice.
evening. Okay, cool. Great
Thank you.
idea. Thank you.
Bye all.
Good evening, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Thank
Thank
joining
you,
us.
Asif. Thank you, Farzana.
Thank you,
Thank you, all the
Amreen. Thank you,
panelists.
Farah. Thank you, Rashida.
Brilliant.
Thank you,
Brilliant event.
Farzana. A pleasure. Thank you, Natasha O, being in the background there.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
everybody.
Our diversity coordinator, Susan, lovely to see you on the call. Beth, thank you.